on. Hi, everyone. I'm Angela, the CEO of Sunfish, and I am delighted to be here today with our guest, Brian Rosenberg, the founder of Gays with Kids, who's also a dad through alternative pathways to parenthood, surrogacy, and adoption. Brian, welcome to Just Keep Swimming. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be able to talk to you here.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, we'll get a little bit more into your background in a minute, but first, let's just set the scenes for our audience. What is happening in your office today? What's going on at Gays with Kids?
Oh, well, we are very excited because we are getting ready to relaunch GWK Academy, which, as you know, of course, is our platform to help gay and queer men become dads. And we're relaunching it from an app into a web-based platform, so it's much easier for people to find it and to access the content right away. So very excited for the new platform launch.
Wonderful. And the one question I always like to start our episodes with, can you share a little bit about your favorite family success story? So a particular couple or individual that really stands out in your experience supporting family building?
Sure. So, God, there's actually a lot. We've been Gays with Kids has been launched almost 10 years ago, believe it or not. So I think there's some of the stories that that are not about GWK, just successful stories of that, like the guys who adopt these kids with special needs and they just take them in, and these kids have had a lot of challenges. I mean, I can think of 4 families off the top of my head, each of whom took two of them are single dads, 2 of them were couples, and each of them took in they somehow got involved with these children who had really crazy special needs, like need a 24/7 kind of care, and the doctors didn't have much hope at all. And they took these kids in and became their parents because no one else wanted to. And I got to meet 2 of them in person, and it was just amazing to see. And these guys, they just can't talk nicely enough. I always get whenever I talk about this, I start to fail because
Oh.
they just can't talk enough about how much parenting these kids has impacted their lives. And for the better, it's a lot of work, absolutely. But they're just so thrilled to have the opportunity. It's crazy.
That's incredible. That's an incredible story. All right, well, let's get a little more personal. So you and your husband Ferd have done so much to support the queer community. I'd love to start with your family building story. I know you two met at the gym before app dating was a thing, and then built
Yeah.
your built your family of 3 through adoption and surrogacy. So can you explain a little bit what you see as the most important differences for aspiring parents to consider between those different journey types?
Sure. So honestly, I think that the major difference, quite frankly, is affordability. And not that either of them is affordable. Adoption path will take in the US, which means you're going to adopt a newborn baby, will cost somewhere between $40,000 to $50,000. And then a surrogacy and IVF journey will cost, we're telling people now, somewhere between 140,000 to 220,000. As you know that, and I know everyone listening is like, well, that's a big gap, and you're right, it is a big gap. But the truth of the matter is, there are a lot of variables that are involved, some of which the intended dads will have control over, and as you know, some of which, or many of which, they will not. So it's really difficult to say up front. So I think that's the biggest challenges. Most people, though, also who are who want to adopt, have a reason for it. They were adopted. One of their parents was adopted. A sibling was adopted. They're just very familiar with adoption, so they're not as nervous as someone who has nothing about it with the process. I think that is what I found to be the case with everyone that I talked to, especially.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of the cost differences. And then I would just add, it really depends on how you envision seeing your future family. From my work with intended fathers and intended parents, and whether or not it's really important to you to have a biological connection, which you could get through surrogacy, or if your goal is just to be a parent. So,
Yes,
um,
agree.
yeah, so that's great. So you and Ferd, your husband, founded the organization Gates with Kids nearly 10 years ago now. Next year will be your 10-year anniversary. Can you tell us a little bit about what prompted you to form the organization?
Absolutely. So it was our own journey to parenthood. We set out. So first of all, our kids are now we is 14, and I used to say he's almost as big as me, and that's not accurate anymore because he's as big as me and getting bigger. And then his twin sisters born through surrogacy just turned 13. So our journey took place a while ago, relatively speaking, and I can tell you there were no resources back then, or very scant resources to help us. Especially, I'm also HIV positive. I'm very open about that. I have been for over 30 years. I've been with my husband for 30 years, exactly, 30 and a half years. And so between being gay and being HIV positive, there were zero resources available, and we had to just figure it out. And we got matched with a woman who had already had a baby, and after going for several months with her, she decided she did not want to keep the baby. She decided she did want to keep the baby, excuse me. And so we're like, oh, wow, I guess we're not going to become dads through adoption. And so then we started a surrogacy journey. And then right after we figure out all the different partners, building partners and organizations we'd have to work with, especially with my HIV status, we got a call from our adoption agency about Levi. So I don't think I know. I think I maybe met one other family in my time that has done both adoption and surrogacy. And I would like to say this though to anyone that's watching who is wondering, do you love the kids the same? There's absolutely no difference in the way you care for your children, whether you're biological offspring or not. And in fact, I like to share that it turns out I'm the biological dad of the girls born through surrogacy, the twins, because my husband's little guys didn't swim so well. And so, he loves them all equally. I couldn't love any of them more or less than I do. Like, I couldn't love them, excuse me, more than I do. There's no difference there. But yeah, you're going to choose a journey that makes sense for you. And I want to make sure that you have what Ferd and I didn't have, which is confidence that, I don't think there was a single decision we made. I'm like not even exaggerating on our surrogacy or adoption journey that we felt really confident about. We would go in. What typically happens is you find an adoption agency or a lawyer, or you find a surrogacy agency or an IVF doc, and you just go and schedule a call with them. And they'll, back in those days, this was way before COVID, everything was done in person. And we'd go to these meetings that would take an hour and a half or 2 hours. You get all this information downloaded. And if you're like me, I walk out and 5 minutes later, I said, I don't remember a single thing that they just
Yeah,
told us.
so much
So yeah,
information.
so much information. And so we would literally leave and then walk out thinking, what did they say we have to do next? And so that was really why I wanted to help. I figured we could use our own experience to help folks. And that became the impetus to launching Gays with Kids, which I didn't do until, we were inundated with children, right? Because we had 3 kids under the age of 2. So it wasn't until like they were all out of diapers and eating solid foods and Levi was in pre-K that I said, okay, now let's see if there's, anything going on. And I was surprised that there was still nothing to help gay men become dads and to talked about all options. So I launched Gays with Kids. And our goal was to help guys become dads. We did it by telling stories though for the first 7 or 8 years. And so I know we inspired a ton of people because the story Brian and Ferd became dads through adoption and surrogacy. And today they have 3 wonderful children. They can't imagine life, without having kids around. And so those stories would inspire people. But as I like to say, nothing that you could take to the bank to actually explain and make your journey easier so that, you wouldn't feel like I did when I was going through it. And that actually became the impetus for the launch of GWK Academy almost 3 years ago.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I know, having worked with so many people going through the process, it's just so confusing, medically, logistically, legally. It's a almost 2-year journey, and I've worked with intended fathers who are lawyers or doctors, and even for them, it's a confusing process. So
Right.
if you don't have the resources kind of spelled out to help you on what's an incredibly expensive and also incredibly important journey, it can feel really overwhelming. I also really appreciate your point on, and I've talked to a lot of parents through adoption and surrogacy about this, um, on, really feeling like all your kids are equally your children. So same with folks who work with an egg donor, for example, and as a hetero couple, maybe the mom doesn't have a biological connection, but really feels the same love as any parent. And in fact, I've had a few parents confess to me that they love their dog as much or more as their actual children, and that's not even the same species. So I totally understand what you're saying. Let's just for the sake of the Instagram recording, let's just try this question one more time of a very short answer of what prompted you and Fred to found Gays with Kids. I think the longer answer we'll definitely use in the full podcast when we put it together, if that's okay. So just crisp, like okay, I'll try again. So you and Ferd, your husband, found Gays with Kids nearly a decade ago. What was the main thing that prompted you guys to start this incredible organization?
Sure. So I think it was during our own journeys to fatherhood, and I say journeys because we had an adoption one and a surrogacy and IVF one. There were scant resources available for us, very few, even fewer for me because I'm HIV positive. And so I remember sort of going through either of those journeys thinking it would be great if like someone could just give us all the information we need to have up front, basically educate us, and just so that we would be really prepared and prepared for some of the challenges that we were going to face as well. And so that was really what ended up causing, wanting me to, I remember as we're going through our journey thinking, someone should build this thing. And so, yeah, I
And you
just
built
waited
it.
until, yes, so we built it.
Incredible. Yeah, it's a ton of information to navigate. I'm also curious, did you always feel like you might become a founder and build an organization? Or was the journey kind of a slow evolution where one step just naturally led to the next?
Well, honestly, so our kids are now 14 and 13. And back then there was just nothing going, like there was nothing. And I couldn't understand how there could be nothing. And so there was a versioning platform for dads that is no longer around now, but there's nothing about gay dads. So there's nothing, two things. One, to help us become dads. And then the second part of the equation is, all right, we're dads now, and lives change dramatically, as you know, when you become parents. But for we gays, especially of a certain generation, like older guys who had spent all this time living fabulous lives, brunches and going out to parties, etc., life really changes. And so I wanted a platform to be able to connect with other dads, honestly, just to be able to talk through all that and connect with others who are
Incredible.
doing the same thing.
That's incredible. Yes, I've heard wonderful feedback from folks as they start to navigate this journey. And really, over the last 30 years since you first thought about parenthood to today, the industry has evolved so much, especially for surrogacy and egg donation. There's now so many providers, egg donor surrogates, fertility specialists, lawyers, more. For folks who are considering building their family through surrogacy, what would you recommend as the first step as they're getting started, since there's so much out
So
there?
the very first step I say to people is get educated on what your options are, because I want you to know there are multiple options. You become a parent through surrogacy and IVF if you want to have that biological connection, or if you have a spouse that one of you has a biological connection. You can become a dad through adoption. And as you mentioned, by the way, interesting enough, both the path for adoption and the path for surrogacy and IVF are around 2 years. And so you can become a dad through adoption, and where someone else has a baby, and you get connected typically before the baby's born, but not always. We were connected with Levi when he was 5 days old. Or you can do foster care too. There are a ton of kids, Angela, in the foster care system, actually, 400,000. And of that, 125,000 of them have been freed up for adoption. The purpose of the foster care system is to eventually reunite the child with some birth family member. But that doesn't happen for about a quarter of them, 25% of them. So, I want to make sure you're educated. Just understand your options, and then go the path that calls to you.
I really appreciate you calling that out. I think a lot of people think parenthood and think surrogacy, but adoption and the foster community are really important areas to consider too, depending on your goals. So it's great that people have all of the resources available at the Gays with Kid Academy to learn about all of these different options. At Sunfish, as you know, we focus on financing and helping people afford surrogacy and assisted reproduction, which can cost about $200,000. We've helped a few Gays with Kids members manage their finances now, and I'm curious, in addition to the loans we offer and growing number of employer benefits, how do you typically see queer couples planning for the financial side of their surrogacy journey?
Yeah, I'm excited about the growing number. I mean, it's coming slowly, but it's going to happen for sure. I think that just people get overwhelmed when they hear this $200,000 figure, right? Like, most of us do not have $200,000 sitting in our bank accounts ready to spend this. But as you know, like, it's just a question of educating them. Even you don't need $200,000 up front, and you can cut your journey up into chunks so that you do what you can afford. Right? There's three main phases here that are involved, and so if you just cut up, I think that people, we can make this work. And so I think that's the biggest thing is, and that's why I love partnering with Sunfish, is that, that aha moment when people get it. Yes, I thought this was out of my reach when you told me how much this is going to be, but it's really not. Isn't that amazing?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a big part of our focus is just to breaking the journey into bite-sized pieces so you can afford one step at a time. Maybe it will take you 3 years instead of two.
Right.
And then we work with people to really look through all of the resources that are available. There's a number of grants and discounts that will help them navigate. We're also often surprised to find that future grandma and grandpa or extended family is willing to help too, which can really make a difference. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Gays with Kids, your organization. What are the top two things that really make Gays with Kids unique?
I've already hit on one of them several times, which is that we cover all paths to parenthood. I don't think there's any other organization that does that. Again, I just want you, if you want to become a dad, I want to help you become a dad in whatever path and way that you want to. So, and then the other thing is we only focus on men. And that's because honestly, when I was starting to think about fatherhood, by that time, 15, 20 years ago, lesbians have been moms forever, right? Like, it's much easier for them to become parents. And so I just felt like, in fact, I worked like for Boston's big LGBT center for a couple of years, running their HIV health education programs. And they had a program it was primarily for moms. I mean, there were a couple of gay dads then I knew became dads, but most of it was all women. So our focus really on men. And then plus, of course, as you know, in general, dads are, the parenting community doesn't understand the role of dads, or didn't think dads were very involved. It's changed for sure the last 10 years, but it's still not an equal, thing. I remember we went to buy clothes and stuff for Levi. Or we found out about Levi when he was 5 days old, or 3 days old, and brought him home from the hospital. He was 5 days old, and we went to this Bye Bye Baby, this huge store. We said, "All right, it's gonna sound crazy, but tomorrow we're bringing home a baby, and we know nothing and have nothing." And we went on a whirlwind tour of the store, spent way too much money, and I was shocked, though, taken aback at the number of items from clothes to toys to food, etc., that had little like labels or notes on them that were all mommy focused. So whether it said, maybe love for moms or from one mom to another, etc., it's just like, wow, was I not supposed to be buying this stuff? And so again, things have changed. I like to think if I were to go to Bye Bye Baby today, I wouldn't see that as much, and it would be more about from one parent to another. But yeah, it's just amazing to me, like how left out of the equation we felt.
Yeah, it's a great insight, and I've been really impressed with the resources that GWK offers, specific to the queer community. In addition to all the information from your family building partners, I know you've added features to allow people to connect with other parents and find mentorship. So maybe talk a little bit about what led to that, because I do think you're right. It can feel really isolating to pursue parenthood as a solo parent or as a queer couple when they're things have changed, but the resounding number of resources out there are more heteronormative. So tell us a little bit about the mentorship program that you've added.
So again, when I wanted to launch Gays with Kids, the idea was I'd share my experiences. But by now my experiences were so long ago, they're not really relevant to anybody. And so we said, and we just over the years have built up this amazing community. And so we started bringing people on and act as mentors. Most of them have became dads through their path to fatherhood within the last 2 to 4 years. And they're just there to act as a sounding board, to answer questions, to act as cheerleader, whatever it takes, So I'm very excited about the mentor program. And our GWK Academy enrollees who connect with mentors have the best things to say about that relationship. It just, it takes they're saying it takes a village to raise a child.
Mhm.
The truth of the matter is, for gay men, it takes a village to create a child. It's to build your family. And so to have someone on that you're not paying, who is just there to support you, who knows exactly what you're going through, and how invaluable is that?
Incredible, really incredible. I will add, I think it's really exciting to see and thinking about the future of family building, the ways in which technology can foster more personalized care and community. So I love what you're doing. We see a lot of that at Sunfish too, in terms of being able to build tech-enabled platforms to help people really customize their journey exactly to them and what they're looking for and the type of resources that they need. So I think the way you've thought about scaling this really intimate experience of getting advice and building your family through your platform has been really exciting for me to watch in the years that I've been in the fertility journey, in the fertility industry. And I would be curious to hear from you as you think ahead to the coming decade. What about the future of family building and assisted reproduction is most exciting to you, Brian?
I think I would agree with what you just said. I think that it's going to become more available to more gay and queer men because of all the resources that are coming up, and like you said, with more players coming in and opening up their doors to the gay community. So that's very exciting to me. As I said, I've been HIV positive for over 30 years, and when I was a youngster, so actually when I was like 22 and I found out, and so parenthood was never on the table for me, and I didn't think, and it wasn't for like another 10 years until I realized that my health was, consistent, it was going to be fine, and I could do this. And I just love today that I talk to these young gay men who know that parenthood is an option, and the question isn't when, if, it's when and which path. So I'm just excited to make more people aware that they can become dads and that there are different paths, and one of those paths is going to speak to them for any one of a number of reasons, and they can become dads. And I just hope our goal is to be able to educate them, and then we connect them with different family building partners, and in this way I consider Sunfish to be one of them, to help them on their journey. And that, Andrew, today you mentioned this earlier, how many more organizations there are today, more surrogacy agencies, more IVF clinics than there were when I was going through the journey. And I think a lot, I know a lot of people find that over like,
Mm-hmm.
where do I start? Who do I connect with? And that's a big part of why GWK Academy offers an exclusive network of family building partners to help cut out the noise. Not that there aren't awesome agencies and clinics that aren't involved with us. Of course there are, but all of ours are awesome and have been doing this for a long time and share my passion to help the queer community become parents. And so I think that's an important thing that we do as well, is help them like figure out who to talk to and which, how do you get through 1,000 surrogacy agencies? Just find the one that's best for you. So
I
yeah, I just
completely agree, Brian. I think it's um in some ways really exciting that there's so many more resources, in other ways even more overwhelming than ever. So it's incredible that resources like yours exist. I know from where we sit at Sunfish, it's been really exciting to be one of your family building partners. And I think the number one question when people start their journey is, how am I going to afford this? So we're really excited to be able to offer guidance, really detailed, personalized guidance on the financial side as people work with you to start their journey. So it's been incredible to have you here. As a closing comment, what's the best place for people to find and contact GWK and GWK Academy?
sure. Best, I mean, social media or online. We're really big on Instagram. We've got an awesome community there. Come and follow us and engage us in our Instagram lives. And then you can engagewithkids.com or gwkacademy.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining, Brian. It's always fun to talk with you, and keep doing the incredible work you're doing. I know both of our organizations collaborate really well, and we'd be really honored to be a part of anyone's journey that comes through GWK. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Take
And
care,
we
Brian.
love partnering with you guys. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.